just because I'm not in the mood to stream right now. Whew. Good news is that I'm taking a good break from grinding gear because I feel like that's that was a large aspect of my anxiety and frustration with the game, because I don't know how they managed to design a system where it's like, yeah, you get what you want more frequently than you did in the first game, but it's also so immensely tied to wins and has its own kind of RNG subsystem. It's like, why are they so afraid of the idea that like maybe people will just play the game because they like the game? Like they just still aren't confident in their game. All this time later.
Despite us having hacked gear and everything, and you know, we thought our gear was hacked, because everything was hacked, wasn't it? Like, where did you get that from? This is legitimately earned gear. Just got lucky, it's like everything is pure. Just pure crap.
It's just so weird to think about because, like, it's so blatantly apparent that they're only doing this because they're, like, afraid that people will not keep playing the game or be invested in the game once they have their gear. They just don't believe in the game's design being fun enough to warrant playing.
I think a lot of like games handle that are very brain. It might be just convention, you know what I mean? Like Mario and the like to be unusual. Look at the RPG systems and all that, they're a pain in the ass that exist. It says, you know, if you want to 100% the game, you have to do all this. And then you're just like, no.
Ouch!
There haven't been any really good gear lately, right?
Gear, you said?
Gear, yeah, from Amazon.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything of note recently.
Damn, it sucks.
Perfect season for it, and there has been absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I think as of right now, there's only been 4 perfect gears, and then that's everything else has just been average or flop.
Yeah.
Shame. I think they also nerfed that.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, maybe Pures was just not a thing they wanted to emphasize. Honestly though, rare exception, I kinda don't feel like Pures are a thing to go for anyway. I'd rather mix and match.
I'd say if anything, like, because you can customize almost everything, like actually everything, I feel like just the concept of peers, but then it's just like a trophy in a way. Like, oh, you have this shirt and it has pure sub defense up all over. Great. Are you gonna use it? Probably not, but you got it. So yeah. But it's still a shame, kind of, that they kind of just stopped after that.
Dude, this jet sculpture is like absolutely on my ass for no reason. Oh my god. God, I miss Echolocator so much. Like, why does Ninja Squid get to be this strong? You can see it in some situations, but not all of them.
Yeah. And it's only if they decide to like move quickly with Ninja Squid. If they decide to move slowly with Ninja Squid anyway, because the rippers. Ooh, ooh.
What?
Hmm?
Talking to my brother about something.
Did you break the bad news to Sarah?
Oh, he knows.
Yeah, he figured out last night. And
No.
very funny reacting to it, but very kind of a sad reaction.
What? Tag yourself on this jet sculpture that doesn't know when to quit. You. Peace out. Oh, for fuck's sake. I don't think I hit that much in that match. I don't get why Squiffer is still... Like, it's easier for me to be accurate with Squiffer than with GoTuber.
Probably because of the wait time. Unless you're like a sniping god, or just really good timing. You gotta wait and time your shots.
So, like, the maintenance was supposed to have started by now.
Oh, well, if it's about to kick in soonish...
I mean, it was supposed to
probably
kick in
just
40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Huh. Did they get cold feet and not do
Oh,
it?
it's so great for a lot of people. Oh my god. I don't.
That would be a great ending to this story.
We heard the cries and the woes of all our fans. We decided not to do it.
This.
Already missiles? Hello? Aw. Buddy. Oh shoot. Oh no! It's just a junior on our overload. Oh, he did. Never mind.
Here's Sarah making
They're
noise.
saying
in
that
the
there's a
background.
yeah, they're saying that there's a maintenance about to kick in. Technically, it was supposed to have started 40 minutes ago.
Nintendo's timekeeping is as good as ever.
Oh my lord.
What?
Aww.
Ah, brush.
That's going down here. Rip.
This post on Twitter. Harvey's marketing. Mention what Harvey's
That's funny as hell. Wait, what's up?
Yeah, I was just wondering to myself.
I'm right here. Oh. Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I had dinner. Dinner's good.
Oh, I don't know how this is coming up right now.
Ouch!
Oh, I can make this open red card. Yes!
I like that I look at the map and my entire team is just perching somewhere, and then I look at what their weapons are.
Oh no.
Actually, yeah.
What are they?
Sploosh and Enzap
It's a
and Umbrella.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you was going to be snipers.
No,
At least
man.
that would make sense.
I thought they were
I
good.
thought they were
It's like today's opposite day.
And they're all perching on.
They're all perching on different corners of the map.
It's good. It's great. That's what.
Hey man, we always wanted the meta to be a little slower. Why not?
Wait,
You guys all stay up there.
Oh god damn it, missiles.
And I can maybe kind of understand misogynism.
A bit
Oh, but there is no
Yeah,
slow finishing on
no,
that.
it's a Sploosh, an Enzap, and Umbrella.
Okay, no, then never mind. That makes absolutely no sense.
Gotta hold the point, guys. Gotta hold the point.
it's
I mean, this
But there is no point.
just
Exactly.
like,
Partials though. What happened?
Charm plays YouTuber. And
Ow.
I don't get
It crashes.
Goob. Goober.
Ouch! Hey, does Sploosh kill me from all the way over there? Okay. I swear, they have magic. They had one magic RNG bullet that has 10 attack reach, but nobody wants to admit to it. Oh, you fucker!
Nobody can join your room.
Yeah.
Asher, every time you appear in a room, then suddenly it's
I don't get it too, because sometimes I'm actually just trying to like do a thing by myself, and then it's like, oh shit, party boat.
All these other people.
in the last game though. There wasn't the same limit of spots, so you could just play one game and then the next game the entire lobby.
it's full with all your friends, and you're just
Get
like,
it,
damn,
get it,
man.
Fuck.
It's like when the privates go up, the private battle. Whenever you're doing nothing, then suddenly you're just ordering gear, then suddenly it's full.
How did that you know what fucked
Yep.
up?
I'm mad that he has that name too. Holy crap. My brother's mashing to get into the room, and the last person that takes the last slot, no splat for you.
Sorry, Zero. No splat for you.
Yeah. No, first.
Dude, can I just have a slosher with fucking blur spawns? Like the actual slosher slosher?
Yes, bring that back.
Players special start because that's actually pretty cool and helpful.
Who's that? Almost! Time to go. Hey, somebody go overextend for me. I'll watch
I
you.
like how you can actually
I'll
play
play
over
overextend.
like a.
Okay. I'm away.
I'll play overextended.
That's the whole reason why I want a thing with splashdown that I like using. That's all I want to do with it.
I like that you can
Oh,
play
God damn it.
YouTuber, like a Skipper, or like a Charger, or a Bamboozler. It does all three. That's why they didn't give Charger. Do all that.
Hi.
Yeah, you know what's funny? If you do even a slight partial charge, you can do about like 60 to 75 with the YouTuber.
No, you don't. Wait a second! How did he hit me out of that high in the air with an octobrush?
did
Like,
that really not hit
excuse me?
shots?
The game calculated.
Like, excuse
the
me?
game calculated the
Oh, what is this
those
bullshit
hits
happening
before
here?
you died. Anyway, but more on the point. In Splatoon 1, you know, if you had enough damage up, you could do E-liter could do 50 without charging, right? That's technically faster than getting 2 hits with bamboozle.
Yeah, I remember things. Good things.
Damn it. I like how our two shooters just like left us unable to fucking paint our own spawn.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I honestly don't get that. The funny part is, if we get the lanes, we'll probably win this. Okay. There's the again. Oh.
Ooh, that's looking rough.
Oh shit. I see a wild charm.
Oh no, it's Chum. The Chum is in the room. With a frying pan. Whack!
Let me switch my weapon instead of just leaving. Fuck, lobby.
No splat for you?
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, I'll probably drop after this. Want to get something to drink.
Hydration is important.
I've been doing such a bad job of that this break. Like nothing but soda. I have more water.
My aunt has a habit of like buying juice and only juice, and then
I mean, that's actually not much better, but I don't know. I prefer to soda.
yeah.
Well, it's all up to you, buddy. Oh, okay. Damn it.
Nah.
Bye.
You playing like you're playing Squiffer. You
I
can
do.
so mad long charge.
Hey man, I'm getting used to it. Hi there.
Sound the beacon.
Damn it. Let's put this here. Will they come up?
I like the way when you have object threader on that, you know, there's a sprinkler and you're just painting around the place and it just blows up anywhere.
Bye.
It's like sprinkler. Clack. It's like, oh, I hit that.
Damn it! Okay.
Oh.
There's something.
There it is.
Yeah, there they go.
Oh, it's really nothing. Remember our matches earlier? We were being used as beacons.
Oh!
Them all, weren't they? They were all fucking beacons.
Everything.
Wasn't even any beacons. We were the beacons. They're just like, jump in, jump in,
Wait,
jump in.
why did that person die?
You got 2 tabs. One of them.
No, I held one of them, which means the other one was a lethal.
Healing time is fast.
Huh? Yeah, under the bridge. Oh shit, freshness bonus. Hey! You base freshness bonus. On my way to another sale.
We're on the road to Snail City.
Oh god, yeah.
It's a QR for super jump arrows, right? They're just dedicated to not carrying.
What?
Just bully them, get them out of there.
Nope. Almost. A lot that's happening all at once right here.
Damn it.
Okay. All it is coming in. There it goes. Give me a break. Get him. Yeah. That Junior just like directed me. That was insane. You saw that though, right?
He's just very good at what he does.
Bubbles are so freaking massive.
Dude, I honestly feel like Bubble Blower is a bit absurd.
I mean, you
Bit.
can probably...
You didn't fight the team of 12 bubbles,
Oh
did
my
you?
god, in terms of splat zone zone.
And tower and clam.
And literally anything.
Really?
It's like if wall meta could explode on you whenever it wanted.
Yeah, because that's what Will always does when we play clams. It's just like there's just bubbles all over the basket.
Bubbles are my main.
That's literally all he does. He just jumps back to spawn then.
Yeah, no, I jump back to spawn and blow bubbles and wait for them to get to the target.
Man, I like
So dumb.
That's so smart. I
I have no idea what I'm doing with this
I actually
special.
don't like the bubble blowing weapons that we have.
Yeah, pros.
That's honestly the biggest thing for me when it comes to Bubble Blower. It's like, even the Forge Pro, which is probably the one I would pick up, like, soonest. Why do you always come after me? Why, though?
There was a.
I don't.
Why did he swing straight at you? The no splat for you.
Splat free.
Silver
I have
arrow.
no idea.
He didn't even throw like a bomb or.
Well, you see, he probably was figuring that maybe Azure was aiming at someone. He's like, no splat for you. Or at least not the splat you were intending to.
Can I get one player?
Oh, well, I delivered the video to Pad Warrior.
Oh yeah, I saw how you did that. Did he react to it? Did he watch it?
He says he's showing it to his wife. He really.
Good.
Here.
I'm telling you, it's kind of like, you know, I feel now that, you know, I understand Pad Warrior more now since I found out the dad joke thing. I mean,
Oh, I did hit him.
Did you guys watch this video? Oh,
Wait, which video?
the undercover cop.
Damn it.
Well, now that I'm still waiting for a match, I will go with this.
oh, you haven't gotten in either.
Ow! No, no one's left.
No one has left.
Yeah,
This is me, Nutty,
basically.
and Ezra in here.
Bully
Yeah,
them.
but I'll probably drop after this one. Wow. I messed that up.
Oh man, it's just like old Sprinkler.
Oh, wow. Rest in peace, that dude.
Let me stop this brush. Son of a bitch. Go check it out.
Has anyone gotten a sprinkler kill in a while?
I did a while back, though.
They're just not as threatening as they used to be.
No, because they eventually lose all their
Ow.
range. It's just like put them defending.
This guy swam off the stage! Oh my god. Oh, you know something that I just realized I need to check out? What? That, wait, Kyle, what loss class is the YouTuber in? Is it a light loss weapon?
There is no such thing as that.
Oh, I'm dumb. Ah, this missile! Beware the end zap in mid.
All out.
I know.
I'll just sit here with my team of randoms. Don't anything on me.
You have to let Nighty know exactly where Will is at all times.
Really? Get out of here.
Good thing you have those callouts.
Alrighty. I think you should be in now. Go.
It's really horrible being in a place where the Hydra sucks.
Now, like 3 other people left.
I'm here, like, I'm trying, guys. Like, I'm trying to kill them all, but, like, you just have to help me a little bit. And one of them saw one of my teammates is called Salty Squid, and he's just like, I'm going to be salty with your performance today, mister.
Oh god. I was wearing the glasses for you to order them. Actually.
Oh, well,
Completely forgot.
oh, I could do that later.
Might. Later.
No, just to order? Like a private? To think of it, did I order from recently?
No.
I just realized I have not ordered anything in a long while.
Even if you've had, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's like a formality at this point. I'll order something so March can disappoint me.
Okay.
Jesus. Dapple's just shred bubbles now. What the
Yeah, I'm not
hell?
wearing object shredder.
Yo. God. Weapon, man.
Oh.
The hell, man? Weapons are disgusting.
Ah.
Uh-oh.
Patch time.
New Japanese tweet. What does that mean?
Patch update time. Oh.
No, I mean, there's no maintenance though, so what does it mean?
It says sometime tomorrow now.
Wait, they've delayed the patch?
Oh boy.
What else did they find out?
What?
Oh
I think
no.
enough of Japan complained.
Like, what does the actual patch say? Just that it's gonna be tomorrow?
I mean, that's what... We don't have any of our translators, but I'm guessing Jaw did the Google thing as just guesstimating.
Ow.
I just wonder if it says that there's a reason or anything.
They never give a reason for why they.
Well,
usually
there was a
don't.
reason for why there was a patch in the first place. I don't know why they would delay a patch. That's never happened.
Exactly. But then
Technical incompetence. They realize that they can't round down to like 2 decimal points with the bullet size.
That's kind of rude to developers.
Oh, it was this weapon. Okay. Because oh yeah, the bullets do 32. That explains why I can't beat a Splatling.
But I can't defeat Yoke, whatchamacallit, a brush. I don't know, it's been slept on heavily.
Wait, what has?
Octobrush. Like it's I know he's not bad, but it's terrifying.
It's one of those weapons where not enough people played it for other people to actually see just how good it can be.
I'll be right back.
It's
Oh,
a
no,
good
it's-
weapon, but its kit is invisible, so no one cares.
Yeah, that's basically it, really. The closest it ever reached to that point was last game because it had a Kraken on one kit.
No, it was at launch when everyone liked the jetpack, and now people don't.
Oh yeah,
so no one uses
true,
it.
true.
Oh what? That's
See, I think
no.
the difference between this game, I think, and the last one is pretty much that in this game, because the maps are so tiny,
Nope, you can't pop them if you die. You can't pop them if you die.
where's my team?
Same.
Well, where are you? Okay, we'll have to do something about the dapples.
Oh my
though,
god.
because the dapples are silly. I think maybe the thing might be that isn't it weird to like change all of them equally down? All of the whatchamacallit them
All the
All
down.
of
Yeah,
the-
all the
yeah.
dualies. Yeah.
journeys down when they're not all of them are equal.
Yeah, that I can agree with because I feel
Let's see
like
what the actual tweet is.
the way that they should have approached this, if it was going to be like this, the Splat Dually should have gotten 1.25. Basically the Glugas and the Gegs could have kept what they have right now because they actually need those.
Yeah,
I'd say maybe in
The others could have gotten dropped to 1.25.
Glugas I'm not sure about at the moment.
Glugas actually are really consistent, but again, Inkmine Inkjet is a kit that is like
I know, but-
super weird.
That's the
So
problem.
you're not going to see a lot of people using it.
That's the problem. I think that as a main weapon, the bullet size is probably a little excessive if it was on a good kit.
Mm. Oh, you mean you're saying that right now the Glugas are actually too good?
Well, at least compared to the Gegs. The
Yeah, I
Gegs
can
are
see where
still
you're coming from now.
mediocre.
No, they're not.
They're not.
Saru, Saru, you've been playing them since they were bad.
Yes.
Wow.
I love them.
Loving them doesn't mean that they're meta.
I know, but they hit. All 4 hits hit. I can arc shot.
We're gonna have to also do that thing again where I tell you that
Control stick
like
actually just stopped working when I went to the menu a second ago. Like,
huh. But yeah, it's like we're gonna have to do that thing again where when it's like basically when somebody here says that something is good and you know you don't see it used prominently in the meta, what we mean is that it's solid. It's not meta. Like meta as a quantification is kind of lost on a bunch of us because well we don't play meta.
I mean, I like
would be
Gegs,
able-
but I know that if you wanted to win consistently, they're not the one that you go for.
Yeah.
but I mean, I wouldn't.
Oh fuck. Wow.
Who's spamming missiles? Tell them to fuck off.
Chickens, what weapon are you playing?
I'm playing a heavy.
Oh.
Why?
I didn't see which one was you. Oh god. Help.
Yeah, but like,
Who's...
Also, yeah, I just realized again that they said that like what this week's weapon is the 52 deco.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And I just like I cannot believe how little I actually care about that thing. Like as soon
What
as
does it come
I
with?
saw what weapon it curling bomb and stingray.
That's actually going to be the better of the 2 kits for the 52. Oh!
Oh,
I was definitely kind of there thinking the same thing, and It's like, it's weird because no element of that thing has synergy outside of the 52 and the curling bomb itself. But at the same time, it's gonna see usage. But Anik was arguing with me that the kit is really, really bad. And I'm just kind of like mystified by that.
He likes the
I'm
flings.
sorry. Wow, that is actually mean.
The flings is awful.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
It is
It
awful.
really isn't.
It is.
Damn it.
It's just bad. It's an underbuffed thing. It exists.
Fuck.
I just don't know what it was designed to do. That's my biggest thing when it comes to that particular weapon. Like, it's a variable roller, yeah, but is it supposed to ink? Is it supposed to kill?
Like I was honestly thinking, like, with the way that it kind of seems like rollers have their own defined roles, and they had to like really stretch to make the Flingza work as a viable new option, which it kind of doesn't.
They
It
wanted
kinda-
to.
I
They
kind
wanted
of
the
just
new looking roller. That's it.
yeah, I just kind of hope that in Splatoon 3 they maybe think about not just bringing every weapon back for the sake of bringing it back, because I don't think they can balance that many weapons, and a lot of them don't even really have the roles they used to have anymore. It's just really like if they want to make a good game, just they need to focus on making sure all the weapons that they include just actually have a purpose.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Hey, look, it's snowy.
I thought you said it was snowing. I was about to scream. I'm like, again?
Well, it was snowing here like yesterday.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. All I know is I just need that second Gluga set like immediately. Need that. I need custom range.
Will
I'm
it keep its
disappointed
hit?
the patch isn't tonight. Like I wanted to see the damage.
I'm so surprised it's like they straight up said, okay, no, it's actually gonna come out a little bit later now.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, what happened?
Like, did they have a moment of remorse?
Japan
Or is it
complained
just...
That stuff
Japan.
happens in software development. Like anything could have happened that made them delay the patch.
Yeah, I figured it'd be something like that, but it's like, it's interesting.
They're like, this was a mistake. Let's see how many people complain about. Oh, they're not complaining. Oh, they're complaining about us changing it. Oh.
Wait, what? Complaining about who? What?
Oh, everyone's they're like, oh, by the way, the buff. Wow.
Okay. That was an interesting kill. Holy shit.
What?
Whoop.
He jumped out at the thing at me and I saw him.
Oh no, because I watched on his screen and he actually dually dodged down, like double dash down, so he was moving really fast and then he just exploded in the middle of the air. Yeah, this game's deco was not built to handle things
Speed?
like super fast motions like that.
Actual speed, you know, as defined by the game and not the netcode. How'd I miss?
Ow.
I definitely want to play, but I don't want to knit still.
I'd say that's gonna. I will say, like, I'd say the little journeys there will have to be changed. As we
Like, changed how?
well, the bullet size is too big on the smallies. I mean, when you invalidate the dash of your journey, it's kind of like, okay.
Ow.
It's like they're kind of
I
going.
don't think dashes. I definitely don't
Dashing
think
is-
dashes and turret mode is invalidated. It's definitely lessened, but it's not invalidated. But again, they are changing the bullet size, so we'll see.
Are they though? Maybe they'll just delay it forever.
Wasn't that what they were just saying? I don't know.
No, I'm
anymore.
saying like maybe they'll just delay the patch forever.
Yeah. It's a win-win for everyone, to be honest.
Motion.
It'll release when the vitality sensor releases.
Splatoon 3 comes out. Boom.
Interesting that we got both heavies. You know, very good. Thank you, game.
Dude, I hope for as bad as the weapon has been in this game, I really hope that Carbon Deco is Burst Bomb Inkjet. That would be great. I just really miss playing that thing.
I miss a lot of things. Like Hydra. Being good.
Was good. It was great.
It's no good now, though.
No, the charge.
It killed us. That was just an instant.
Charging.
to it.
The charging. Why'd they do it? Why? And then everything under the sun forces you to drop your charge. They should give Hydra a charge hold.
Yo.
Sure. Yeah, because like even when you get full charge, it doesn't last that long.
It doesn't. And then if one Tenta missile decides to just drop down, you're gonna die. You can't just walk away from it while charging.
That would be a pretty strong buff for the Hydra. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I feel like that can definitely bring Hydra back into. Because I don't really see it much.
You only see people who used to use it in the last game. And even then, they're dropping it. Like, they dropped it like flies.
Yeah.
Damn it.
At what?
What? Oh, I'm not wearing Object Shredder. This is bad.
Brushes are insane.
Brushes in this game.
Oh no, they're evil.
As in ink brushes or octos?
Oh, Octos. The ink brushes are still stupid, you know, as in the other stupid. They're broken in a different sense.
Especially when... Oh, max run speed ink brush. That's funny.
Well, is that your...
I just find it hilarious. I just find it hilarious that thinking about that, that's actually legit now. Like, I literally will. There are just some
I don't
weapons.
know if I call it legit.
Okay.
Funny.
It's a gimmick beyond just, oh, I'm being absolutely stupid right now. Because they're still weapons where when I see the perks attached to them, I'm like, that doesn't work. But then I remember Splatoon 2 is Crazy Pants Town.
Why am I challenging this?
I don't know.
Try this out.
Laggy ass ink.
Laggy.
As soon as you said laggy inkjet, I just think about that clip I was watching recently from like the test fire of the dude who was just warping around firing 17 inkjet shots at a time.
Oh my god. That's totally not terrifying. Oh my jeez.
And it was like classic inkjet too, so yeah.
Oh my god, wait, speaking of test fire, what day is it? 18th? I remember a couple.
Yeah, it's the 18th.
ago, Facebook said, "Oh hey, remember this day?" And it was the whole like, it was last year when they showcased
They
the
had the
Switch.
event?
Yeah, reminiscing, and I was like, "Yo, this is totally not the same." And I'm so glad that we had video footage of this. I wish I could tag you, but like, that's Facebook and not like that. Switch.
I wish if I could have tried those. God damn it.
Why? They
I
were
really wanted that fucking set. I really wanted that damn set.
Imagine dualies with a suction bomb. Not too crazy.
Too crazy.
Not too.
Huh?
Imagine pre-patch dualies with a suction bomb. That's what that was.
Yeah.
Pre-patch, dude.
Pre-patch vanilla dualies with a suction bomb from the Nintendo event.
I'm
has
trying to picture what you're saying, and I'm just here like, what's the problem?
Okay. But man, SplatERA wasn't stupid. It was stupid because it was SplatERA, but it wasn't.
I think it was, for as much as people complained, including us, we complained about SplatERA with Tenta missiles, I think it was basically because it was the new thing, and people were just dumb and running into missiles consistently, leading to those inflated scores and people calling for nerfs.
I mean, back then,
it really should. It's like
with Stingray, so
Yeah.
it's like in retrospect, they should have kept Tenta missiles on it because holy shit, splashed out with a burst bomb.
Yeah, that was insane. I don't know. I don't understand that one. Give it a splash.
man,
thing.
when I heard they
changed
This is
like,
dumb.
this is dumb.
when I realized that the invisible hitbox, yo, this is dumb. When they buffed it, I'm like, really? Then everybody was like, oh, it's dumb now. Like, no, it's good now. Everybody is.
It's good,
It's good
now.
now.
That's the thing I hate the most about this community sometimes when it comes to defining things. It's like it can't look at something solid and be like, this is already good, and then when it hits the broken tier, just recognize it. Call it broken. It is broken. Like, everything that people say, oh, it should be this strong. Like, they just find all these justifications and reasonings to further, like, cement the idea that this thing should just be this
Why is this
stupid, even when it's unhealthy to the game. And I'm just like, is it really that hard to just be like, this is dumb?
Why did that miss?
Like, you can like dumb things, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I fucking love the Grim Range Blaster, but that shit is stupid. Like, come on. And that's the reason why every now and again when it's like, I hear discussion and something is like, it's abjectly good. Like this, like a perfect example was NZAP before any of its buffs. It's like something is completely good as a kit, as a base
It's
weapon.
fast.
It's completely,
Well,
it's good.
oh no, okay.
It's good, but it's not meta, and I hate that terminology specifically because the meta is defined by these absolutely
Nonsense.
insane weapons, and it's like. You
know,
guys
but-
need to be able to. You guys need to be able to sit back, separate this entire notion of something being
But-
meta from a weapon being good.
But good is a relative thing. Yeah, sure. You can't, like, in a vacuum, you can't compare a weapon to anything else and say if it's good or not.
What
Like,
I would
if
say,
there's something that's better than the weapon you're using, then it's not really good.
I don't know. I don't get it because.
what I would say is, like, my thoughts on, the buffing and nerfing kind of act. And people were saying, no, there should be buffing rather than nerfing things. It's just like, I'd prefer nerfing in the case of this game. Because everything is just so, all the really good things are just so too good. That
Yeah.
other things can be good, and like they're losing their identity sometimes trying to make them like the others. Like you have things like I don't know, like NZAP. They want NZAP to be more like a 10-10, can kill now, and they want everything to kind of have be samey instead of like if we nerf things down, then you could slow down the game a bit. It's too fast. Everything dies too
The
fast.
problem is that they're like not nerfing the things that are killing things fast.
Yeah.
They're nerfing stuff like arrow spray and
Yeah. that much I'll agree with. Like, I can't say that I fully subscribe to the notion that you're saying here, Chickens, because, like, I don't. All right, actually, I agree a lot. But I also have some reservations. But I'm still of the opinion that, like, there's enough in the game that sits in this kind of, like, quiet, like, we could use a little love tier. Not that they're bad outright, but they can definitely use more than what they have.
Ink brush.
And
Oh no, we're back
I
in
mean,
late night
yeah.
Shit.
I know.
Yeah.
What I mean,
Wait,
what I mean is basically that nerf these
Yeah,
stupid things first,
Oh,
and
yeah,
work
for
from
sure.
there. Because the game is getting, like, everything's getting buffed so much that, like the NZAP, you know, that type of buffing that's dumb. That the game's so fast that how can you really make some of the weapons viable? I don't know what way we can make them viable other than by removing some of the identity of the weapon. Like, you know, Eater, like, for example, always traditionally played fairly slow. And it seems the only way to make things viable at the moment seems to be to speed up its killing. Or that's how they're interpreting it, that everything's killing.
Yeah, that's definitely how they're interpreting it, because
Because they're not
there's
giving
a
anything
bunch
a
of stuff.
painting power, so they're like, you know, fuck painting.
That's a thing too that I kind of sorely miss between the two games. Like, I play a lot of weapons, but I don't think I have a weapon where I just really like the way it turfs outside of, like, Slosher Deck. Like, even Octobrush, which was, like, my go-to, more so for its painting than its actual killing potential, is kind of nowadays more like, well, I'm just gonna go in and slap people in the face now.
Oh yeah, it's such a good killer.
Yeah.
I really dislike how they nerfed the Brello's turfing ability because it just makes these super thin lines and there's just such a huge gap between
Yeah.
shots now. It's a pain.
It's like
Like it can cover a lot
it's
of
weird
turf, but
too
it's-
because it does cover a lot, but it simultaneously doesn't feel as satisfying in a
well,
weird
the
way.
thing is, like, it can cover a lot of turf, but it's gonna leave a lot of turf uncovered also unless you like really start with it.
Or you're just like me and decide that you throw a sprinkler in every single direction anytime you have a sprinkler available.
What is the range of NZAP?
The problem with how they handled that is because I think they nerfed the turfing on the Brella,
For one
obviously because of the original Brella kit. Once the Sorella Brella comes out, that nerf is going to be felt on that weapon a lot harder than it's felt on current Brella.
Yeah, I never actually thought about it that way, but I keep it. This goes to show though that, like, there's a lot of weaponry, like, classes in the game where one kit is basically deciding the fate of every other thing in its
that's
class,
the downside of them
because
hand selecting all of the available kits.
And
yeah,
buffing
because it's
that.
like
I've been thinking about this a lot over the last, like, kind of day or two after all this other weapon meta discussion stuff, in thinking and really hoping that they come up with some kind of a system in a theoretical Splatoon 3 where you're able to customize your loadout a lot more in terms of being able to pick out sub-weapons and special weapons.
I feel like that would actually solve a lot of issues because they'd have to actually balance stuff like
Oh,
crumbling
please,
bombs.
Robert,
and
It
stuff.
means that
Anything
main
could
weapons,
happen.
sub-weapons, and special weapons balanced individually relative to all of their other respective main weapons, sub-weapons, and special weapons.
Like they would honestly have to like make sure that specials and sub weapons aren't like super overpowered and broken, or else people would just always have
Right.
like splat
Well,
bomb
in a way, it
bubble
would
or
almost make
stuff
it
like
easier
that.
for them to balance stuff because you could just see, okay, well, if everybody's using, say,
The
Splashdown,
same kit, yeah.
then you realize, okay, well, maybe we need to do Splashdown. Instead of,
It's so
we need
funny.
to find ways to nerf these particular weapons that just also happen to have Splashdown.
it's so funny too because it's like customizable like weapon sets is actually
Everything would have burst
it's like
bombs.
simultaneously I feel like that's a cool idea, but I'm also deathly afraid of what that could bring about. But at this point in time, it almost feels like
I
it's
see.
pretty much
I
inevitable.
don't
like
think,
that-
I don't think it
that's
could be worse than the current system if they
Like-
do
like-
it at all smart.
Like that's why I'm saying they'd have to like bring down the power of the weapons because like if anything can have a burst bomb or if anything can have a splat bomb, like they have to like consider that and be like, well, we have to make sure that it can't be too overpowered with any weapon we release.
Right.
52 with the first bomb splashdown.
No.
Oh my lord.
Things like that are part of why that doesn't currently exist.
Yeah.
I get
It's
your
like that's
point,
not
though.
a thing they can just.
But, like-
It's not a thing they can just throw in at any time. That they have to design completely around that.
Right.
Who's
But I think if they took the idea of each like main weapon, sub weapon, special weapon, balancing each of those 3 categories around, you know, that particular category, and then find a way to devise some kind of a, how do I put this? If they can design some kind of an algorithm
Oh look,
that puts the
Okay.
main, sub, and special all together and generates what like the special cost of that particular kit would be.
Huh.
So like
Be interesting.
that, well, because that way it would help to cut down on things that are just like that way that you couldn't make a set that's just like ridiculously easy to farm a special.
What if they just made
So you couldn't just make like, I'm gonna take an arrow spray and give it a sprinkler and
But
then
Dorman,
get ink armor
how about-
and have it be like 160 points? Like that.
how
wouldn't
about they
help.
balance it like this and they just make burst bombs a really rare loot box?
Oh,
No.
stop!
I like burst bombs. Stop it.
Honest to God, you know what? You know what they could do in a situation like that? Like just bringing up burst bombs. Just lower its damage.
Oh,
Like,
Like maybe make them more spammable, but lower the overall damage they do. Like burst bombs go from like what 60 damage times 2 thrown per tank in this game, and you just make it like
25 probably.
30, 40.
I think
Well, it means they would have to go back in and look at the specific
Like-
utility of each sub-weapon taken completely on its own. Like,
What?
you have your burst bomb. What is it that you want the burst bomb to be able to accomplish in order to have somebody who wants to put burst bomb on their weapon? If you want to use it primarily for like damage, then take that into consideration. If you want it to be used primarily as just like a quick way to ink something, then you can build it kind of around that.
I feel like
Why don't
burst
you
bombs are
spam
broken
roll?
enough. I could probably just reuse
Happening
anything
now.
else.
Burst bombs are.
Like it'd be a lot easier to balance like the pick
Oh
any
my
sub weapon
God.
if burst bombs weren't one of them, honestly. Like that's
Right.
the most obviously problematic sub weapon to be able to stick on any weapon.
Well, then if it becomes too problematic, then find something else that is able to do that'll have the functions of a burst bomb that you want it to have, but without the ability to make it dumb. Like if you wanted to be able to do quick turfing stuff, then either just cut down on the damage of it or have it function in a way where it doesn't do damage on the opponents and strictly turfs, or more like a mini ink storm kind of thing, something like that. I don't know.
I could see them like
Yeah.
combining something like the toxic.
Or just
with the
fucking get
burst
rid of
bomb,
it. I don't
just make
care,
it like
like-
an ink trap or something.
If they make a third game, they're probably going to be changing things up again in some way anyway. They completely redid the specials between the first 2 games, so it's not like it's unheard of. They removed some of the subs from the first game and changed the way that they operate.
I think only the
That's primarily the primary reason why they adjusted the special because like invincibility for a $100 game is a problem. It works well with all the fucking invincibility. Shit out. The only special that doesn't make sense that's not in this game is like I don't know why Echo is. That's the only.
Yeah, honest to God.
That,
Like every other special can actually just fuck off.
I mostly agree with that, actually.
Like it's just bring back echolocator. Like that's the only like you make cold-blooded a stackable ability and you don't bring back echolocator. It makes no sense.
Genuinely
I'm
though.
just, I don't, it just surprises me that they never introduced an actual like echolocator analog.
I think the thing that bothers me the most in that case specifically is that there are like already in the game multiple ways that you could, what do you call it, basically have the functionality of echolocator while also having a new interpretation. Because they were intelligent enough to reinterpret Ink Strike in two different ways, and both of them are like the strongest that they've ever been between Tentamissiles and
Splashdown.
what you call it, and Splashdown, right?
Yeah.
But then nobody sat there and thought that like the base idea of echolocator, which is basically tag people, couldn't have just been like grafted onto Tentamissiles when you're already tagging people with that thing? Like
It's
I don't
only grafted for the
I don't
tags people
understand.
for
I
the
don't
person
understand
that's
why
using
it's
it, at least.
yeah for the
Not
person
really.
that's using it,
It
and then
doesn't
of course you know
function
there's the drop rings that are on that surround the enemy when they're running around on the field. But I don't understand why that wasn't kind of utilized more as like a global thing where everybody can see the guys like, oh, this person's about to get bombed, or you should probably watch them a little bit. Like, and the best part about it is it doesn't last as long as Echolocator did, so it's not about a situation where you feel where you feel like it's overly stupid because of how strong it is. So it's like you would have still had the utility of Echolocator where things are tagged for XY amount of time. Then the tagging isn't completely global, which kind of gives breathing room to the people who would be subjected to it. And then finally, there's an actual offensive angle to it, so like it kind of works. It works out in your favor, so you don't feel like, oh well, why isn't it just a dedicated tag special if it's gonna do that then? The answer being, it also kills things. It's like it would have been very easy to graft that functionality on it, but they just never saw to do it, and it would have actually given Cold-Blooded more of a reason to actually exist in the game because we are cold-blooded, and now the tags actually, like the idea of being tagged with missiles is mitigated, and thus there's usages for cold-blooded. I don't know.
I would take missiles not killing if they just tag people with like point sensors if they hit.
If they hit nearby, yeah.
It was just a point sensor
And-
barrage.
Yeah.
Huh.
That would be
Or
cool.
maybe, or maybe have
though.
it do maybe have it work kind of like a deployable ink mine
And
kind
it's
of deal
like
where
it's
it doesn't do
sensor
like
range
immediate
based,
killing, but it
so-
does do damage and also marks.
Huh. So like residual damage that
Like,
would also mark.
Instead of a rocket hitting you
That would-
doing 100 damage and killing you 30 damage. And maybe if you
Huh.
get hit by 2 or 3 of those missiles, then that could add up enough that it could become lethal, but that would mean that you'd be standing in one place and taking the entirety of it.
That would
Yeah.
actually be
But
really
if you just
cool.
get like a glancing blow by one, then you get some damage and you get marked for a couple seconds.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And then the marking is dependent on how close you are to getting directed or not by the missile.
Right.
Yeah, because they already have that damage input anyway. Wow, that's a really cool concept. Throw these ideas out to Japan real fast.
because they totally listen to the West.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I mean, I should stop doing that. I should stop
Also, I
memeing
kinda
like that.
wish
It's
Toxic
funny,
Mist-
but I should stop
It's
doing
not a
that.
meme if it's
Toxic
true.
Mist would do like 5 or 10
Anything?
damage every time you enter it. Something to make Toxic Mist a little like, oh wow, maybe I really shouldn't try and run through it.
I feel like
Just fucking go
the
in.
the quickest ways to buff Toxic Mist is to make the effect of Toxic Mist linger after you've left the cloud. That's like
Yeah.
easily
Yeah,
one of the
that's-
best ways
Yeah, like
to
actual-
actually handle that.
That would
Because
almost make
the
it.
whole thing about Toxic Mist is that there's no real threat to it once you've accepted that you're gonna go through some Toxic Mist. Because
I think
like
the main
it's more about the mental pressure of, oh, suddenly this area has a thing, I don't know what that thing does, please stop it. Like once you've gotten over that and you're there like, I'm just gonna go through here. Especially like my case against this entire thing is like tower control. In the early days, people would just throw barrages of Toxic Mist at the tower, and it's like, why do I have to care if I'm standing on the tower and it's gonna move through that stuff anyway?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
popped out of there for
I
some
think-
reason.
I think my idea for like mist isn't necessarily like just like you leave the mist and like it lingers, but just like I think that just like if throw mist and it just lands on top of someone, or like even if you just like go through it just even for a little bit, like if you touch it, I think just a chunk of your ink should just immediately go away.
Yes. Yes.
That would be a cool idea too. It's like there just needs to be something immediate to tell people that this is not a smart thing to do.
Like basically, it should just have the same disruptor. Like it slows you down and still hurts you even when you're not in the mist anymore. Like I feel like that should.
My idea for Toxic Mist is to throw it in the fucking garbage and bring disrupt.
No, we don't need Disruptor back. Fuck out of here.
Why?
They were always absolutely.
Okay, but think you could actually finally slow down NZAPs.
Yeah, that's honestly what I'm thinking about. Is it worth it?
It's like
the ability
it's
to
like
stop a Zerging NZAP.
Yeah, and then you slow down
Boosh.
dynamos and fucking flingses. Like it's just like, and people.
Yeah,
are
that-
already,
like, that's the thing,
memeing
right?
On fucking dynamo and flingses.
Yeah, but see, then you just pull out the Hulk meme card and just say, you know, it doesn't matter, I'm already slow, and you just kill them anyway.
But I'm just here
It just.
I could never agree to it. This goes so far beyond the whole Zero and Disruptors meme. I'm just here like I can't agree to that because the entire idea of Disruptor Disruptor is like second to Zuka in terms of things that just cannot exist in Splatoon 2 as it is right now.
It's just. I don't know.
I'm just salty that they fucking ruined Vanilla Blaster for me forever. Because of fucking Mist, and its inability to fucking do anything.
I mean,
But
Vanilla
I mean, it's a
Blaster
really
is
good.
I don't care. It's too late.
It's too late. I played you in your ass.
It's too late to apologize. It's too late.
Wow.
I don't know. It just.
Oh, wow.
I think in pretty similar ways, like in regards to a lot of things in the game. It's just like. I don't think, like, to me, it's just like good is good, busted is busted. Like, there's a difference between something being good and something being busted. Like, it bothers me when people's only idea of, like, something being good is something being busted. Like, I just don't get why people think that something has to be busted for it to be good. Like,
I think that comes from the notion of looking at being overused. I used the term overused in kind of Pokemon meta sense.
It's funny because that's exactly what I thought at first.
Not that it's being used more than it should, but it's being used more relative to like the really, really, really popular, like almost must-use kind of weapons. And I think people look at that kind of stuff and say, okay, well that stuff is busted. So if I want to use something else, I'm going to need an alternative to be good. But
That
to
is
be good
equally
comparative to
busted.
that means it must be equally busted.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to use Pokemon terminology, though, there's a reason that people don't really use non-OU Pokemon in OU.
I know, but that's
I
the same
mean,
situation, man. It's like
do you want to make like tier list bannings for Splatoon weapons like Pokemon did? Or, like,
I don't want to, but I feel like
It's
the
so-
community in the sense has kind of done that already,
Yeah.
just by what is used and what isn't.
I mean, the thing is, like with Pokemon, I don't know about necessarily like.
I
Small
wasn't trying
rules,
to
but-
make it as an actual comparison.
Yeah, but like
to
this
Pokemon,
is,
just
I
saying
think
for
this is
terminology's
relevant.
sake.
So I just want to say, but
Okay.
Yeah.
like
Go ahead.
with Pokemon, when you use a Pokemon, you have to make sure that there's like a reason you're using that Pokemon over like a different Pokemon that might be better. Like
Alternatives.
there are
yeah.
people who just like to put Flygon on their team because Flygon is cool and people don't use it, so that makes me cool. But like in reality, Flygon doesn't really do a whole lot that other better Pokemon already cover. So it's kind of like there you can use Pokemon just because no one's using it, but you can't claim that they're good
You're not-
choices just
You're
because
not as likely to win that way.
Hmm. I guess I understand. I guess I understand it from that angle,
Yeah.
but I'm also of this opinion. Like, my entire thing, I guess you could say it's more like, I wish if I had good Pokemon examples because this is actually probably the best way to argue this.
Yeah.
But it's like imagine something that is
The Pokemon
like
one.
it's like imagine something that use your same example, but imagine something that is like quantifiably better than a Flygon, but isn't OU. It's like ban list. If you had to use that terminology, it's like that's kind of where I'm coming from. It feels like there's a lot of things that are in that weird middling area between actually genuinely OU and actually not so heavily used. And I don't know if it's like a perception issue or if it genuinely is that it's just there are that many better alternatives, but
it's not like a thing like there's like gradients of being better than a Flygon. It's like Flygon isn't doing anything unique. You need something that's doing something unique. So like if you want like something that's a ground dragon type, Garchomp is that Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like and Flygon just becomes like a worse version of Garchomp for the most part.
Yes. Even if you take away the typing and just think about what the Pokemon does, like a lot of people went crazy when Flygon got Dragon Dance and thought, oh, finally something. But then it's like, no, use any of the other Dragon Dancers. They all
like
use Charizard Dance.
Salamence or Charizard
Yeah.
or Dragonite. Yeah.
Like
See, that's,
it sucks, but it's the reality is that
I get it, but it's the part about I guess competitive gaming in general that is me. The notion of you should be using this.
Well, the problem in this game specifically is that they made so many weapons that do the same roles, but some of them are a lot better at those roles than others. So like you could
some of them are built to fill roles that you don't
why?
really need to fill.
Wait, what was that?
I mean, I don't know.
There
I
are some
think
roles that are.
I'm saying, like, you have a lot of things that do the same role, but then there's obviously one thing that does that role best out of it. People want to min-max it all. And then there are other things that feel like they're built for specific roles, but those roles that they're built around are kind of impractical to just actually use within the game.
yeah, that's what Pokemon players call gimmicks, to be honest.
Yeah.
Or memes.
Right.
What will use this all the time? I saw your teams, Will.
Yeah, sure.
Memes.
Don't let your memes be teams.
Wow.
I saw your love disc teams.
Gotta get the Swift Swim Sweet Kiss. On that.
I think another reason why, like, I definitely understand all of this. I really genuinely do. Don't think that I'm like arguing for the sake of just arguing right now, but I think another reason why I actually like I understand it but I can't see it myself is because I didn't come from like Pokemon or other competitive games of that kind of nature. My big thing was like fighting games, and I guess I kind of have an appreciation for like the solid over the absolute like best of the best. You should always be using this because it's like the solid still gets wins. It's not like there's a certain level of solid wherein like it's still going to be competitive with the upper echelon, but it's also not like gimmicks and memes where it's like you gotta work extra hard. It's like picking Marth versus picking Fox in Melee, to put it like actually in perspective.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I kind of
I
have
guess
a
it's
lot of
kind of-
that.
I think it's kind of different for fighting games than I guess Pokemon because
Yeah.
there's a lot of like execution and skill factors involved. And I guess that's true in this game too. Like there's definitely like wiggle room.
Yeah, and just like this is another thing like where I get it where just like Azure and I just think about a lot of these things really similarly is because yeah, it's the same thing. Like I also come from, you know, the fighting game perspective where it's just like, yes, you know, you can fully acknowledge that this thing is, you know, better in pretty much any situation. But it's like, because, you know, part of it is like, you know, like execution and everything like that. It's just like you can use this. It's not this unusable thing.
There's an element of personal like comfort level
There's an
in your
element of,
execution.
Yeah.
Personal, like, just, you know, like, it's not like, it's a manual thing. It's not just numbers. Like, it's not just numbers. There's like human error and just mind games and whatever else involved in. Like,
Yeah.
It does differ from Pokemon. in that respect.
And again, it's also very important that, like, for those of you who are familiar with it, you think about it in terms of, like, the whole Melee Marth versus Fox analog that I gave, because specifically that's like, it's one of those situations, it's one of the, sorry, it's like, that comparison I made specifically because, like, if it was just a straight up numbers, flexibility, what can you do situation, it's like, why the fuck wouldn't you be playing Fox the whole time? But then you consider the fact that not only does Marth, like, not murder your hands, he also has the best fucking matchup against Fox in the entire game, so...
Hydration is going off right now.
So it's like, I guess that's a little element of where I'm coming from when I think about these things. Not that it's the correct way to think about it overall, but that's just me.
Like, it's just, things are good enough that, you know, you can use them even if they aren't like the obviously objectively best thing, because you know, there is a matter of outplaying people and human error and, you know, just all that good stuff.
But the only thing that I'd add to that though as well is that going right into the competitive, which is usually where viability is kind of paramount,
tested.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of them are fairly equal in their abilities and all that, and what's really then ends up kind of like, I know somebody's on #1 Western team, and one of the things that was bringing them down was that one of them decided that he wanted to go back to Hydro when it was released, and they said that instantly the team just couldn't carry it. They couldn't. No matter how good they were, individually they were always winning, but as soon as that happened...
Okay, but I kind of want to touch on that because this goes back to the exact same thing that I was talking about before. There's a reason why I said something like Marth versus Fox instead of saying something like Yoshi versus Fox. No, that not even. Saying something like fucking Falcon versus Fox, because on paper you have this thing that is very, very good, can do things against the uppermost echelon. Then it's like it genuinely has enough going on that it can't be considered within that grouping. It's like there's a weird kind of like duality to this, and it's almost kind of contradictory to what I just said. It's like there is in fact a point where I totally agree with you and Will on what you say with like sometimes this scissor is not going to be good enough, or this, it's like I could have the sharpest pair of scissors or I could just have any old scissors, but it's like it comes down to a point where you have to recognize that there's a certain strength inherent to these things, and it's not just that, oh, this guy's great, I'm going to always do this even when it's absolutely fundamentally bleh, or just cannot pull its own weight.
His other weapon generally was the heavy, and even then they were not particularly happy with it, because like other teams like Oliv's success lies solely on their weapon choices. They will change their weapon on the fall of a hat if something else changes viability, and it works. 100% it works. The teams in Japan, they weren't bucket players. They weren't bucket players who were playing the quad tri-slashers and winning.
They're just
Because that's just
playing good weapons.
But that's what they do. They play the good weapons because that's how you win it.
Yep.
Because the thing about it is that if you want to win, you play those weapons. Because the thing about it is that human error and all that is a thing. But everybody else using the best weapons that are giving you a distinct advantage over other people. And you can't carry even good weapons enough against weapons that are just that good. I don't think that it's really comparable in Smash there, that analogy, because like, are there not two characters which were considered both very high tier?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like I was
Mars
oh,
versus Fox is kind
continue.
of like NZAP versus Splattershot at this point.
God, I hate that because it's not true, but it's also really good for this discussion. So I don't want to pick pick hairs about it. Like, yeah.
I'll allow
I mean,
it,
like,
Counselor, but you're on
like
thin
competitive
ice.
people aren't really using Splattershot anymore because NZAP is the thing.
Right.
Like they all just moved on.
Oh well,
Not,
competitive people
Come
are
on,
using
I
both.
rolled game. What the hell?
The competitive people are using both.
Oh god.
Yeah,
They work well together. But
It's funny
also
too because
also on the Smash thing, it's just like it's the 4v4 then as well. So they're using some people and all that who are like, look at Nike. Nike's not a good shooter.
He's not.
He farms armor
Yeah.
for the team to send the Tentatex in to kill. That's his sole purpose. And that's the way a lot of teams are working. Like, we went against Cooldown, and Ingito was playing the junior. He never engaged anyone, never went near anybody. He threw bombs and painted, and that's it.
I will say he's good with the sloshing machine, but even then he stopped using that since the changes to how that.
I saw him use it recently, but he has like one of the weirdest builds I've ever seen for that thing. It's literally just like 3 main special saver and then random ass subs everywhere else.
He plays for the special.
Yeah.
That's all he does with that.
Is that even effective with that weapon though?
Is it what?
Is that even really effective with that weapon? Like, is it really going to be?
It's mitigating his weaknesses, and he's not the best slosher player. He's really good. He's not the best. So when he dies, he loses special. He loses the chance to use Stingray, which stops most pushes in any mode, right? So adding that allows him to keep the pressure on, even if he lacks the aggression or a certain level of stuff alive long enough to pull out Stingray. Because he always has a Stingray. That's another. Always.
Yeah.
God, I fought him in duos and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Always.
Because he's playing to get Stingray, that's what he's doing. He's not dying, he's not engaging you. He's just looking for your turf. He's not, but at the same time, then the weapon is good enough.
It's a good weapon. There you go. It makes up for some of the mistakes and errors that he has. So that's why he plays that one instead of like Clash Blast.
Cash Blaster is not viable in comp, not because it doesn't have its thing. It's fun. It can do well, but it's not as good as as the standard blaster. If you're going to use a blaster, people would say, why not use vanilla?
Or vanilla.
It's so interesting too, like,
Dude!
it's so
my
interesting
God.
too hearing this discussion about like Blaster because, like this discussion kind of segueing into Blaster. Sorry, because like this actually also reminds me of like when the big Blaster changes happened, and we were all reacting to it, and I heard Will multiple times talk about why would anybody play Range Blaster anymore, and like, I think that was actually another time recently where I was thinking along the lines of maybe I don't personally understand where everybody's coming from when they say certain things. But now that I hear all of this, it makes more sense to me because, yeah, Blaster is at a point right now where it's like, why wouldn't you be using that thing?
Yeah,
But I also still feel like the range has its place, but
like it's still a
yeah,
decent
Blaster
weapon,
is really,
but
really
it's just,
strong.
Like
I think
there are just other things that can do what it does better.
Yeah.
Especially with the stage size.
that Azure and I like take issue with a lot of times isn't necessarily like, you know, just the objective point being made, but it's just like the phrase. Like when you say something bad, like it's just like that the phrasing, at least for me, like phrasing bothers me a lot. Like when you say something like bad or like
again, I think a lot of
With
times.
with the caveat there being that when something is actually bad, trust me, we'll know it. Like holy shit.
I think that's the difference between saying bad as in it's
Oh.
objectively bad
Oh,
versus
dear.
bad
Right?
as
He's
in it's
super
not
laggy.
good in the current,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's just like
or it's not worth using competitive. Even if it's not, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just not good
and
enough.
the thing is that, and then another thing is just like, you know, these things are a lot of these things, like especially like, you know, as you're talking about where it's just like these things that just kind of like skirt that line. You know, they're, you know, they're like a 1 or 2 buffs or 1 or 2 nerfs to the busted shit away from being, oh yeah, use this thing. Like, it's just, they're on that, they skirt that borderline like so hard. It's like, it just really is, it just doesn't make any sense when you're just like, this is bad. Like, it's just, don't use this is bad. Like,
Yeah, they're.
Well,
there's
this
still
is bad,
an
and don't
ongoing-
use the different statements.
I don't know. I never said not to use the gig Julies, but I'm not going to say that they're actually good. I really like them, but if your objective is to win,
That's.
there are better
I
options.
was going to use Clash again as the. This is. I don't think that Clash is a bad weapon. I don't think that you would win competitively. So from that standpoint, it is bad to use.
If
but
you
it's
want to
not-
win.
It's not a fundamentally bad weapon.
but a lot of these competitive players, they just kind of say stuff in the sense that this is just a bad weapon, like just a bad weapon or a terrible weapon. Like,
In fairness, in their circles, they are. They're constantly
Yeah,
playing with
it's
high
like-
level
yeah,
players.
It's like
it's a
I think
relative
that's,
scale. from what they're
Yeah,
saying.
that's definitely an element of this that I will concede, and I also feel like that's also more so a failing of communication than an actual anybody feeling like somebody's making an elitist statement or coming from a position of like, well, you're not in the know.
Let's be
It
honest,
feels
in a lot of contexts, it is just like a fucking elitist statement. Like,
I mean,
But
that's the thing, because it's like there is that element, but then there's also the element where sometimes I mean, it's gonna suck, it's gonna sound really weird of me to say this, but there might also be an element of us not trying to meet them at that level, to be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I kind of would like this is what I mean when I say it's like a failure of this is what I mean when I say it's kind of a failure of communication, because it's like, I guess there aren't enough real venues for people to talk about these things and say, like, X person comes into a stream chat one day and says, why don't more people play, I don't know, let's just randomly say dualies. Why don't more people play dualies? And competitive dude is like, because they're not the splatter shot. And that's the end of that discourse. There's nothing further for the person who's actually inquiring to glean from it other than top guy here said it's not a splatter shot, so it must be
just
bad.
not as good.
However, in demonstration, in my own time playing, here I am doing all of these interesting things. They might not be the absolute zenith of top tier gameplay, but they show that there's a merit to this, and that merit is more highly regarded than top players' words. Meanwhile, top player is here like, I literally play this game to win. That's literally the whole point of me playing this game. Why am I going to play around with a butter knife when the machete is right next to it?
the spaghetti.
Also,
That's what I heard too.
it also boils
Somebody
down to
touch
who's
my
listening to
machete.
the devs. Who's listening? Like, who are the devs listening to when they make changes? Like, think about
That's
it.
what I've wanted
That's
to know the entire
That's
time.
another.
And something that they've never been able to communicate.
It just,
I made that
it's
point
a
last
mix.
night, actually.
Like, it's
I don't-
honestly a mix. You can't say that they're listening entirely to, you know, like the Japanese community and like their feedback, because
Oh,
certain
I
things
meant, like,
Japanese
competitive
community
or
is not
casual
saying
play.
they want to happen. Like,
I'm listening to the numbers that are playing in League.
like
They're listening to internal numbers, that's what I think.
Well, it's,
something
Rather
this,
than-
this is the point that I was starting to make last
and
night
then
during
that
the late
falls
night
into
meta discussion.
But yeah, that also falls into like, so what are the devs prioritizing? And you look
Numbers.
at it sometimes and you're like, numbers, yes, but
You say numbers, but which
numbers
numbers? Are we talking about total
numbers are we
percentage of
looking at?
weapons used in turf war? Are we talking what weapons are
total
winning
percentage
most
of
often in turf
percent being used, total percentage of splashdown being used, like there are numbers, but like what are we quantifying here?
They have a ton of data, but we have no idea how.
Like
It
yeah,
looks
we
like they're
have no
taking
idea
a lot
who
from
they're
League,
more than the
though.
other.
A lot of data is being collected from League.
To play more League. I mean, no.
Which is
actually,
fun-
time to make sure nobody plays Neo's play.
That's funny though, because the league population is so much smaller than the game's like.
Yeah, that is actually the part that's like
I
where
think-
I can understand.
But if
Someone's
the
actually
app,
using
like, the
Reinhardt?
app takes most data from League, more
Reinhardt
data
Zarya,
than any other.
let's go.
Yeah.
The app seems to take more data from League than it does.
Actually,
the
both
other
teams have a
thing.
Yeah.
Reinhardt, nice.
But just for like one quick second, it's like this is kind of a big reason why, like, it's super suspect to be that they would take data from League to then build base cases for what needs to be changed and whatnot, when they should also have the numbers that's firmly support the notion that League between the three regions is just
Abysmal.
a complete mix. It's
But
abysmal
that's how
because
you know they're only
you
listening
have
to
the
us.
Japanese
But that's the thing.
fan base that's like carrying
Yeah,
literally
but
all of
that's-
this for everybody.
That's who they're
Then
listening
Europe
to.
is a wasteland. Europe is like the fucking final screen of the Undertale genocide route. It's like, how
But
do you
nobody
create
They
a
don't
base
care about
cases,
Europe because
like,
they-
and then America trends more towards Europe than it does towards Japan. So it's just
So
like,
you know for a fact,
how-
you know for a fact that the dev teams are looking at the stats and usage number from Japan. They're not really
Yeah.
asking about.
yeah, it's and that's another failing on their part too, because it's like, if you do that, not only are you only getting the trends from Japan to then build a case for every region, you're also not seeing how other regions are differing and why certain weapons are used more prominently in one side. Like, you're basically not seeing that in some situations. An entire region values an entire different set of weapons differently versus one other region or the other two regions combined. And in so doing, there are a lot of things that just kind of skirt around in this weird nebulousness instead of like, oh hey, you know what? The Americans kind of think the Octoverse is strong. What's going on there? While Japan is just there like, oh well, I guess just throw something random out. This bucket is doing really, really well. What's going on? It's like there's no sense of like fine combing through the data. They just see big number here, that thing needs to get a change, or that thing needs to get hit with something. And it's weird that they're going about it that way when they have so many tools to fine comb through all of this
I
data.
think it's not that weird for them to focus primarily on Japan because that is the primary audience for the game by the numbers again. It's like they are carrying the sales for the game. They are carrying the overall, like, you know, in terms of how many people are playing the game. So of course they're going to listen to what has been their biggest region on. There's very little reason for them not to, because I don't know that them trying to listen to the North American necessarily grow the base for the game at this point. Wow, that went horribly for Philadelphia.
I don't know, man. It's like a lot of this stuff is just like genuinely fascinating to me, even with differences in opinions and everything else wrapped around it. It's just, I guess, like to just touch back on something else that I brought up, it's that failure in communication, or just like communicating the stances and context from where different people come from. That's kind of what's been like, it's kind of led to the situation where like things are being talked about in certain declarative ways, and some people take offense to it, or just maybe if they don't take offense to it, they feel kind of like I disagree, yada yada, even though if talked out, they would probably be of the opinion that they understand and could empathize, if not agree, with what's being said. But, again, that's just like, I don't know, like, it requires a certain type of people, I guess, to recognize it and do their own research and figure certain things out and come to the conclusion as to why somebody could say this thing, which is correct, but then you could also have your own opinion, which is valid. So, I don't know. Uh-oh, did Discord do the thing to me again?
No. Sorry.
No.
I'm just like taking in like.
That was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize for.
Discord keeps doing the thing to you.
No, because you see, here's the thing. Every time I get involved in like one of these long discussions and I try to really like belt out my thoughts at the moment,
Discord fucks up.
it's usually right around this time of night where suddenly, because of ISP issues or whatever else, I get massive ping spikes, but they're invisible to everybody else because I never hear anybody say I'm going robot or whatever else. So I'm just chronically falling in and out of the voice chat, and it's like completely silent, or somebody will be speaking or some sound is getting picked up on the mic but chopped up, and then suddenly everybody's talking, and it's like, especially for me, because I deal with really strong anxiety, it's like I hear people and then I'm like, oh, did anybody hear me?
That's actually
Sorry.
a Discord thing, not an ISP thing. Oh, shit.
But no, yeah, like we heard like every word. Like I was just taking it in.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah.
Alright. So sorry about that if it sounds like I'm just being really weird when I ask if
Not at
everybody
all.
heard me.
No, that's fine.
I don't want to go to the next one.
Gotta fucking just nerf the bullshit to make it good.
Yeah.
Just nerf
It's like
the
we're now at the-
bullshit and just like so just you just have the good shit and not just the broken shit. Like,
Yeah, it's like we're now officially at the point where we can officially start putting together nerfs, like real genuine nerfs for things. Like, everybody knows my MO is buff it till it's stupid and make sure that it's appealing. Like, you can't just buff and make everything stupid. It has to be appealing. Like, if you're giving something a big, it's like you have to make buffs that make things exciting for people to play. It's not about just like, make me a god. Like, you have 5 days, make me a god. It's like, no, you have to actually make sure that whatever you're doing is fun for whatever it is. Like, it helps whatever you're changing better fulfill its role. That's like the easiest way to make it more appealing and exciting. This is why I still think the best buff that they've ever done in all of the patches for this game was that initial change to the Brella. Because it took the Brella from being like, this is a cool idea, this is cute, this is a thing, but nobody uses it, to, wow, this is actually where it should have been from the beginning, and it's actually for like making people want to play it, experiment, and learn with it. And it's like, that's great. Stuff like that is genuinely great. It's kind of hard to do that universally. I'll understand, like, I understand that, and I'll definitely concede that, but that should be the goal. But where we are right now, it's officially time for people to start seeing how bullshit fucking NZAP and SplatERA is and be like, okay, they gotta change.
I mean,
It's for the overall health of the game.
for a couple of weeks now, I've had my satanic shooter trio that it feels like they're just never going to change, and I have kind of made my peace with it to an extent.
Wait,
Like-
Yeah.
Satanic Trio? What's the third?
Satanic shooter trio. This is just me speaking person. So this is not in terms of like overall meta thing, but for me it's like NZAP, Sploosh, and Splattershot probably in that order.
And you know what's hilarious?
In terms of just me being sick of the bullshit that these weapons are capable of.
I'm really like, that's a thing too. That's an aspect of this whole buff and nerf discussion too, because it's like NZAP and Splattershot, you'll hear me agree with you without even batting an eyelid. But then we start talking about things that aren't those, and it's like Sploosh is propped up entirely because of its kit.
Yes.
I'm
But
sorry, it's the truth.
I still
It's like
But
I
if you're
still
gonna
like
let
this-
the weapon in the kit still exist, then it's still gonna be a problem. Like, you
yeah,
can't get a
that's the
free pass
issue.
just because
It's
being
like
carried by the kit.
yeah, it's like, but at the same time, what would you do to the sploosh itself?
Like,
Because it's the sploosh. And also keep in mind, whatever you do to the sploosh gets carried over to the kit that isn't as blessed.
Right.
Come and make it shorter.
This is again the problem of them deciding how to build these kits.
Tighten the
I'm not-
cone and shorten the range. There you go.
That would be so
like,
fucked up for every one of the wrong reasons.
I really enjoyed using Sploosh in the first game, the original kit, the Beacon Whale kit, because it was like tough to get in on.
Dude,
But now
you're
it's not.
talking about it like Sploosh 7 was it genuinely one of my top 10 favorite
I-
weapons in that game.
The thing is though, it's just like I just feel like if Splashdown wasn't just busted, Blue would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And again,
it's
remember-
just like if
bearing in
Splashdown wasn't
mind-
busted, it's not like if you just made Splashdown not busted, like Sploosh would be fun. Like,
Bearing
I feel like the
in
curling
mind
mode
that they
is part
gave
of it,
Sploosh
too.
that kit when everything was still back in like day one meta days, and Splashdown was easier to punish if you just ran up and used it raw when everybody saw it coming. But then they made the
I don't
changes to
know why they
Splashdown, and
changed
suddenly
that.
it's so much safer for it to get away with everything.
I genuinely just do not understand that
I
change.
never
Like,
have.
to this day, I will never understand that. Like, I kind of feel like if they were gonna go this direction, what they should have done was you're stuck in that animation of being stuck in the ground for longer. Because
I mean, that's the
there-
main thing.
there's
I
just
feel
multiple
like.
things working. It's like there's multiple things working against every single one of the methods that you're supposed to use to actually deal with it. You like Splashdown is only cleanly beaten by Baller at this point. That's really the okay, no, wrong. There's another thing, but it's more situational. It's when you actually arc the Rainmaker shot and set it up so that it blows up as they hit the ground. But think about how situational that
You
is.
can just use
It's
bubbles.
like okay, yeah, bubbles too, because they persist to a certain degree. But it's like, yeah, like you need 2 specials or something that's locked to an entire mode, and those are the only consistent things in the entire game. Every other time, it's like the game itself has this absolutely atrocious means of handling, like its updating of statuses, states, whatever you want to call it, in certain situations. So everybody who's there like, oh, look at me, I'm Mr. Montage, you should just aim up at the thing when he's doing it. And then you aim up and suddenly you just hear nothing but invincibility plings like nothing's happening. And there's the, okay, well, I guess I'll just stay at the outskirts and do a thing. But then most of the things using Splashdown in this method, in this means, have a way out, either through a curling bomb to get them to a new path, or a burst bomb to further be aggressive, or also just get out anyway. Then it's like, what do you call it? You try to attack on the ground even after you've accounted for their escape, and sometimes the game itself is once again not updating, so they're completely invincible because you mistimed something for a timing that you don't even know yourself. And it's like, none of this should be an aspect of Splashdown. Honestly, I feel like one of the ways they should have changed Splashdown, instead of making this dramatic ass jump in the air, I feel like it should have just been like some sort of like, they stand in place and slam a fist into the ground. If you can break, I don't know, if you do enough damage to stop that, like, it's like the overall idea is okay from a thematic sense. It's like, it's this dramatic, I'm gonna jump in the air, do some action thing, and boom, everything's dead. But it's like, because of how the game handles itself in terms of checking the different states between he's now airborne, now he's armored, now he's falling back down, now the animation has ended, but I still have invincibility, now he's moving again, but we're not sure if invincibility is over, and now the whole thing is over. It's like, because it has to check through each one of those states, and the game's netcode is just not up to par with it, it just makes the experience of engaging Splashdown frustrating if you're not, again, a baller that can just walk next to them and be like, I'm gonna just press A now. I'm gonna press detonate now.
Right.
Like, because there's just too many states to keep mind of. Like, you can't do these things consistently. The people who put up those montages are also doing everybody else a disservice because they're putting it up and trying to educate people to say, hey, you can punish this. But the issue is, there aren't a lot of things that can punish the way that you see it being punished in these montages. And these people are also really lucky.
You used to be able to punish it. Now it's a lot harder than it was initially. And that goes back to the problem that I had with it initially. It was like, okay, people didn't think that Splashdown was all that great, and it wasn't getting used a whole lot kind of early on, so Nintendo decided to buff it. Alright, I'm completely fine with that. They decided to buff it in 3 different ways, and just gave all 3 of those means to it all at once, when they probably could have gotten away with balancing it out by just buffing like one aspect of it.
Literally,
Like,
the only thing they needed to do,
it goes higher,
they had to
it
give
goes
it
faster, the damage cone was increased. If you'd done
Literally-
just one of those 3, it would have been fine.
And the funny part about it is, honestly, I would only say the only one that they had to give it, if they had to give it any of them, was just to make it faster. That's it. That's it. That thing was, it does too much. It's like, I get the meme, I get the decent at best, I understand why people who use it and play it regularly in that level of play have all of these things to say to people who don't play at that level and are just like belly aching eternally about it. I really genuinely get it. But there's also an element to it where it's like, it just never needed all of that. It really didn't. Most it needed was just the speed buff to make it more consistent and in line with everything else at the time.
Right.
That's it, because the biggest issue you had was when you used it, everybody could just disperse, like really, I mean, everybody was kind of bad at the game back then. And when I say bad at the game, not that they were like mechanically bad, but they were just bad at the new elements of Splatoon 2, because coming from Splatoon 1, everybody had this understanding that, oh, we're still going to be doing the same thing, ink and swim, yada yada yada. But but it's like, overall we were bad because of the idea that here's Splashdown that's just changing the game on us, even though it doesn't look to be doing it. It's just, we weren't prepared for it, and thus there are situations where people are using it and doing spectacular things, but and then on top of that, there's also the element of it was underlooked because Day 1 Inkjet was one of the most stupid things on planet Earth. But at the same time, though, it's like, so this entire Splashdown saga, all it ever really needed was just to be faster to start up and actually, like, happen. Everything else they gave it was just like, I don't know what they were, I really still don't know what they were thinking. It's like they were trying to balance around the stupidity of Day 1 Inkjet and Ink Armor, but then they forgot all about that when Inkjet and Ink Armor saw their respective nerfs.
I want to draw a quick parallel between how they've handled the Splashdown and the way that they've handled Curling Bomb Rush. And I think the two of them kind of speak a little bit to how they've been trying to approach balancing at least the special weapons, if not more of the other regular stuff. Just in the sense that both of those are specials that they've been making adjustments to, and they made improvements to, not necessarily in terms of like technical game balance, but they worked them entirely from a basis of trying to improve their ease of use to people who were not as mechanically inclined with the game. They've adjusted Curling Bomb Launcher to the point where, well, you know, you can launch them at different speeds and trajectories and have them go different distances depending on how long you hold the button down. But rather than, you know, continuing to play to that, they're like, all right, well, we need to, since we're nerfing the Aerospray, we need to find some way to improve Curling Bomb Launcher to make up for it. Everybody's just easily spamming the bomb toss button as soon as they activate it anyway, and not even bothering with the whole issue of, you know, holding down to get different distances and shit. So let's just improve it from that standpoint and just make it even easier to spam and get better results from it, and that'll be its buff. They did wind up doing the same kind of thing with the splashdown of, you know, oh, well, the purpose of raw splashdown is supposed to be to, you know, get up a little sneak attack on people, or to jump from a particular height and get kind of like an ambush strike, or if you really wanted to be safe about how you used it, use it coming in for an allied super jump. So you can get directly into the fray safely, because that way it covers your jump point from getting camped on. And rather than continuing to allow people to do that, because super jumping in a lot of respects has been something that a lot of less cognizant players, to try and put it in a way that makes any sense.
Wow.
The players without the same degree of games that don't use super jumping nearly as much anymore, because I think it's pretty fair to say that people don't use super jumping as much as they did in the first game, whether it's because of the gamepad and the whole, all of that stuff or not, or it could just be, you know, smaller map layouts. For whatever reasons, people don't use super jumping as much. So the notion of the safe way to use splashdown is to use it in a super jump doesn't apply as much. So they just decided to make it safe to use raw instead. Because that way it'll be better, and more people will want to use it. Because that way they're getting rid of kind of the barrier to entry of what's the effective way to use it. And so now you've got it, and they made it safer to use raw instead of using out of super jumps, and now it just... I don't think they entirely thought through kind of the shockwave that would create in the fact that you have multiple kits with curling bomb splashdown, and how it means that you can now quickly and safely get in, use it, and then just to safely get out. Because I don't feel like that was what its intent was supposed to be initially. But it has made for a means of aggressive play that they hadn't originally developed it around.
Yeah.
But it feels like they're fine with it.
Well, that's the problem, is that they decided that they are fine with, had more chances to walk it back and never have. So they seem to be okay with it, and obviously whatever data they're using, they've seen how prevalent it's become. There's a reason why original Splattershot became like the shit for a long time. It was the first thing to supplant the tent attack. Like, that is a big deal to me.
Yeah, considering that, like, tent attack was, like, maximum saturation. It's like, it's amazing that we're living in a world where people actually call it the splatter shot when they say nerf the splatter shot. Because back in the day, everything in that line was called a tent attack. That's how serious it was.
But think about it. The splashdown buff is what created that. More so than even the inkjet nerf. The splashdown buff made the actual splatter shot become the default and not the tent attack anymore.
And the thing, one of the low-key weirdest parts about that entire thing is that everything the splatter shot does now, it really could have done before the buff. Like the burst combo, splashdown always had a janky outside hitbox ring. It just wasn't as emphasized as it was post-patch. What do you call, like, all of the things it does, it could have done from day one. It just took inkjet being, like, it just took literally everything about the Tentatex kit getting downplayed before people realized it, and then splashdown got really, like, it got way more emphasized. And things just haven't been the same since. We still say, like, nerf the splatter shot or, like, splatter shot OP.
I will never forget when I realized that Splattershot with Splashdown Burst Bomb is really OP. It was when I was playing on college Wi-Fi against chickens, and I did Splashdown Burst Bomb, and he's like, okay, stop. And that was back when it did 40. I threw 3 Burst Bombs, yes, but... No, it was only 3. I thought it was dumb before the buff. I thought it was really stupid.
Guys, I'm seeing some really bad opinions
40
on Reddit.
damage on a gun that
Uh-oh,
kills
what
in
happened?
3 hits.
Opinions?
Someone made an arbitrary tier list, as they called it.
Oh no.
For what, Splatoon 2?
Yeah, just a tier list of
Fuck
weapons,
yeah.
and there's like one of the modes, or one of the ways he ranked it was on turfing ability, and someone commented that E-liter 4K was a really good turfer.
Is this a, is
Bro,
this,
bro,
is,
can you tell me that? Because my
what
Discord's acting
is the,
up. What happened?
what is the qualifier on,
Oh, you want me to?
sorry, give me a second. I gotta restart. I gotta mention it
Recap.
for my brother. So, basically, Will is over here reacting to somebody, I'm guessing on Twitter, who put
No, it's
up
on
a on Reddit? Okay. Somebody on Reddit put up an arbitrary tier list of like where each weapon falls, and one of the criteria that they used to grade everything was like turfing ability. And with this in mind, one of the things that they said in their tier listing was that the E-liter 4K and like the E-liter 4K and 4K scope were actually really good turfers.
So,
And I'm just like, what is
so like,
You know what's
You know
sad?
what's sad?
Sorry.
So-
You know
the
what's
thing is, like, the actual person who wrote the tier list, he was just listing like different aspects that he had considered, and his placement of E-liter 4K on the tier list is at the bottom in the at your own risk category, saying that charge for 5 minutes and then miss your shot is his comment on E-liter 4K.
Man, I hate
And it
that
was
my
some-
Discord is
Yeah,
And it was
destroying
some other
so
random
much.
redditor who looked at this tier list and said, well, if you're basically saying like, oh, you said turfing ability was a factor, so E-liter 4K should have a mention for being good at it, basically.
One thing though, chargers
it-
do
it-
cover turf
like-
very well in this game.
I just want to read
But,
like what they actually
really
wrote.
do.
And like, I need kind of a bit
So-
more before I can say much more than the following, because like this has to be something propped up by the idea of, oh, 4K has rainstorm, right?
So
And it also gets really high turf numbers because charger lines are neater now. But I would never, in this, like, in the last game, it was actually a close debate. Like, I still remember, like, Chickens and a few other people at one point when I would say things like, hey, Kelp Charter is actually good at turfing, and people would be like, that's because it's propped up on Sprinkler, and it's like, fair enough, but there's merits to inking with a charger. But then they're like, what about when it's being contested? And it's like, fair enough, that's actually a genuinely hard thing to argue. There is a back and forth there. In this game, hell no! No charger actually inks to the point where I'd say it's a good turfing weapon. In a game where everybody's moving around at 350 kilometers per hour spraying ink in every direction, are you kidding?
YouTuber covers turf.
It doesn't matter. Like you're thinking about it in the box of like horizontal shots while strafing in an uncontested area, correct? Yeah, but in that vacuum, there's little that isn't a good turfer. Like I'm like as like that's one use case, and then another use case is when it's being contested, when you yourself cannot actively show yourself for a long amount of time, when you have only this square and you have to work
I mean,
outward.
if you
It's
add
like
those parameters, there are not a lot of weapons that do that. Actually,
I mean,
there are not a lot.
there aren't. They're just, in general, there aren't. But that's usually because some things are designed as turfers, quote unquote, and other things are designed as killers, and everything else falls in between. I just, like, I heard that entire premise, and it's just one of those situations where it's like, I don't like doing that, because that just sounds elitist, but Reddit gonna Reddit.
Need respawn Punisher.
Especially given the entire points being made from me in like the last half hour's worth of discussion about failures in communication. Like, it feels kind of fucked up to say something like that and then be like, lol, Reddit. But like, I just don't get what kind of mentality you need to come to that conclusion about the 4K of all things in this game. it's like that's definitely something that's just being propped up by the idea that it has Rainstorm, and it also gets good numbers because I can sit in one place and constantly shoot at the one place being constantly contested and get a high turfing score at the end. Oh yeah. Ouch, ouch, ouch. I have to wonder though, like, is there anything more to that tier list? Is like I kind of want to read this now.
I'm content to not read it.
I mean, like the actual tier list, he just has placed all the weapons in like basically like ease of use and effectiveness categories.
So 10 is
Not bad.
I mean, splatter.
It's funny because it's like that sounds like a lot better than some of the previous attempts at tiering weapons in the game. I still hate the notion of doing that because it's a team game and team dynamics will always like be a huge thing to consider when you go into thought exercises like this, and most people don't ever do that. They just like tier it as though everybody is 1v1ing with all of these weapons. At the very least, it like that shows some good effort, but I kinda would have liked to see like somebody try that, even if it's wrong. But as long as they consider all of those factors and then do like versions of the list for each one of the game types in the game. A lot of work, I know.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. On a certain level, I'm generally opposed to the notion of tier lists in the strict sense, because it does encourage that kind of mentality of here is what you should be using, which is kind of what I touched on before. Which while potentially truthful and accurate, still just winds up feeling very demoralizing because it tries to stifle the sense of personal experimentation that I think is really this.
Yeah, I can definitely.
I feel like that's not what tier lists really are supposed to be. Like people treat them like that sometimes. But
I mean, it's supposed to be used primarily just to generate discussion, but I do feel like there's
I mean,
a certain amount of.
I feel like
This-
it's not only just for the sake of discussion, it's also to kind of generate a sense of this is kind of what you're going to run into a lot. You should probably start to figure out like cases against, like, if you see this thing listed as very, very good, then whatever you're considering, consider that you'll probably run into a lot of these. And like you build your own internal use cases from what information you glean from that. However, yeah, there is a sentiment where like people see a tier list and it's immediately off-putting or intimidating because like my favorite thing isn't in the absolute uppermost echelon, or my favorite thing is there, but the moment that you hear people talking about how it is, it's a personal affront instead of, hey, you know, this thing might actually be a little bit silly. And it's like tier listing as a whole is kind of like, it sucks because it's very, I've always kind of felt like it's very interesting information, if not for the basic information of, oh, hey, this is what's good, then more so for the discussion it generates afterwards, because you get a lot of interesting insight into things, especially things that you yourself don't play or might not be interested in, just by paying attention to how people talk about them in a good environment that allows people to talk about it without devolving into tier listing memes and people being salty because their thing is criticized or not good enough. And I think that's a part of the whole discussion that gets lost. Like tier listing and tier discussion just kind of became its own meme of, oh, they're doing that thing again, time to do the ridicule thing. There's no way we can get any sort of information out of this. You guys are idiots. Or, or the other one is like either somebody who clearly has not played enough is challenging people who have, or vice versa, where it's like they play a lot but they don't play a lot of the thing that they've just cast into whatever tier, and here comes the actual people to give the proper argument for it, and it's just written off. And it's like, it just opens this Pandora's box of unpleasantness, and I guess that's why tier listing as a whole has gotten such a bad rap. But I don't know, I kind of find ways to get good information out of it, probably because I'm just used to a lot of shit from like fighting games and then other things like that. But that's just me. Not sure. Sorry.
Don't apologize for giving your opinion. Unless it's a really, really bad opinion, but that wasn't one, so.
It's a habit, I know.
I don't know. I don't anticipate ever filling out a tier list myself, or probably really debating it. I don't feel like I'm the audience that they're necessarily built around. Like, I don't foresee myself being some, like, attempted tournament pro that's gonna start, like, having to worry about it too much. But, I don't know. It can be interesting to talk about in a general sense, and it's worth it for... I think if anything else, it's useful for trying to find certain patterns and to help trying to facilitate discussions about potential future balance changes. Because like if you see a bunch of people filling out tier lists and you see, huh, that's strange, 4 of the top 9 weapons all use splashdown.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly, Star.
Oh no.
Oh my god, maybe splashdown should be examined a little bit further in terms of why it's being used so much. Things like that I think it can be useful for. But I think tier lists need to have a little bit of like a disclaimer in terms of just knowing that no tier list is ever final. At least not in my eyes. And especially in a game like this where things like, you know, there is an actual skill component in it, going back to kind of the fighting games versus Pokemon kind of discussion.
And yeah, I see you there, chickens. Oh dear, I see people leaving the rabbit. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah.
Let me
I think it's been pretty safe to
this
assume
out.
that this wasn't.
It's like I had the whole thing set up and everything, but yeah, it's a bit late now. Well, let me just do the right thing and end it for everybody. It's 11:40 actually. Surprised. Yeah, me too. Because it just feels like literally the day just began and then suddenly, oh shit, it's after 11.
Bye.
On a Thursday.
Oh well. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like this was a pretty good, productive discussion. I don't think, like, I'm actually gonna just put it up on YouTube because I've been recording over here, and thankfully I didn't.
Oh man.
Wow. Whoa, what's wrong with that now?
Oh, no. Now other people are gonna listen to my bad opinions.
Man, like, I get the feeling that a lot of y'all need to stop that because it's like you guys are coming from multiple different perspectives. It's like you're not trying to peddle misinformation. You're not trying to like suggest that everybody ever should start using the fucking custom junior or some shit like
I would
that.
never.
And it's
Oh my
like
God.
it's like you like,
could say I'm trying to peddle misinformation by telling.
Take more self-assurance in the things that you say, especially since you don't present it in like obnoxious ways or misinformed ways.
Yeah.
And you're also like fully cognizant of the idea that you don't fit a certain niche. Like you're able to quantify that despite having strong opinions on these things, you yourself
Oh,
are not
bullshit.
somebody. It's like you yourself are not trying to. Wow.
I know he's reacting.
It's
I know
like-
he's reacting to playing, but it's.
Yeah, turf war.
I know
But
it's just
like-
really fun to assume that he.
That as you're talking,
Yeah.
you call that out.
But yeah, but
Everybody 4
yeah,
times.
it's just like, but yeah, it's just take solace in the idea that you are able to eloquently argue your feelings on certain things, and also recognize when you're speaking strictly from a objective or subjective angle. Like
Yeah.
that's basically how I'm operating, because I don't competitive. I just don't. Like I think it's more so because like I'm personally not of the right mindset or place of being for it anymore, but I just don't competitive. But at the same time, I love the fuck out of this game series, so you're gonna hear from me a lot, and I'm gonna listen to other people a lot, so there's my in. I don't know why anybody here has to feel like they're not supposed to speak about a game that they pour more than 100 hours on average in. That's kind of a big deal in today's modern environment. This goddamn inkjet direct though. God damn, that was savage.
Jet. Fucking.
And I'm not even gonna lie to you, the only reason why I like inkjet as much as I do is because it's literally the closest analog to Zuka there is in this
That's
game.
why I
Oh
hate it.
yeah.
Like,
That's entirely why I
like,
hate it.
It's like, I'm sorry, but they're like, whatever they create in these games that is the closest thing to I point and kill you is probably going to be the special I use the most of. Just cause. Cause, let's be real, sometimes you just need that slap them in the mouth button.
Inkzuka, for me personally, was like my most cancerous shit. Precisely because it was just instant press a button, here's an incredibly fast projectile that may or may not be affected by your latency.
It's
Oh look, you're
basically-
dead because somebody fired in your general direction. And now Inkjet has been doing like the same thing to me.
The thing
And I
about
dislike
Zuka
them all.
though is that I actually totally understand that sentiment, because yeah, it was kind of fucked up. Some of the shit that would happen when Zuka was a thing in the
Zuka,
last
when
game.
they
Like
happen,
how many
aggravating.
raise your hand if you've ever been the person where you literally turn a corner and it's like hidden carbon roller, it now has Zuka, but you would have never guessed it because literally how did you get that then and there?
Right.
And it's like there were situations like that where it's like, yeah, this is super fucked up, and I can definitely understand why people are upset at it. But at the same time, there was definitely kind of an art form to Zuka. Like, good Zuka was kind of amazing. Like, it's dumb as hell. I absolutely, like, imagine that I love the hell out of that thing, and I can totally, like, say that it was dumb as hell. And it's like, it's dumb as hell, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, you guys are gonna disagree, but I feel like something should be in the game that's like a Zuka. It doesn't have to be Zuka. It doesn't even have to be Inkjet, but there should be a special that's like that.
I miss the Zuka, to be honest.
Oh.
Like, I know it was like a lot of people
I don't-
like hate it because of latency and all that stuff, but like being able to actually get well-timed like shots, not just like, you know, corny or crappy shots just because you were in a bad spot. It's just the feeling of it is just really good. I kind of miss it.
I get it. I don't fully agree
I
with
miss
it.
being able
but I
to
do
shoot
get it.
E-leaders.
The issue that I ran into, and especially when it comes to things like the latency of getting killed by an Inkzuka shot that definitely didn't look like it hit you anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. There are those.
The problem that you run into with that is like when that happens, you just are left with this feeling of, okay, well, it didn't hit me, but it killed me anyway. There's literally like I can't learn anything from that. There's no way I could have like played that differently to know that I would have survived, because I already assumedly had dodged out of the way of it and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Even me, as a person who loved the hell out of Zuka, I could definitely give that to you because there are, again, like those situations in Splatoon 1 where it's like, there was literally no way I was ever gonna have enough information to inform the movement that I just made. Yet, no matter how I replay this, that was always going, like, that Zuka was always going to happen that way.
In a way, I
So,
would have
how,
enjoyed Izuka better
I
if.
feel like. Oh, continue. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
This is just like off the top of my head kind of speculative thing regarding Izuka and also some of the, I mean, outside of the latency, but some of the other kind of weird hitbox stuff in terms of like if you're hiding under a ledge of it or something like that. I would have been fine with a weapon like Izuka existing if instead of the like just column of death, ink that gets fired out of it, if they had just given you more like a temporary fully charged charger shot kind of deal, where like if you pointed at somebody and hit the fire button, it fires like a fast shot that if you want it to still leave the trail of ink, it can. But like that way, if you hit someone, then you hit them. Great. That way, you're not just like firing Hail Mary Inkzukas that somehow travel over a wall, and maybe the way that the damage cone kind of resets its way back down towards the ground afterwards. Maybe it'll kill you, maybe it won't. Like a lot of that kind of stuff would be taken out of it. And that way you're not just launching a line of ink in a direction. You have to actually like aim and hit somebody. And it still would be like an immediate fast killing tool. But a lot of the kind of weird cheapness of it, I think, would have been taken out.
You know what's really hilarious though? You're basically describing something that I originally thought Zuka was, but when I first used Zuka, like the very, very first time I had like the silver arrow spray, using my seekers, getting Zuka, and I used it, it's like, what the fuck is Zuka? And I just never thought about it again until I started seeing how like SM was using it, specifically SM.
Oh, you mean
it's like, I basically, like, because originally how I thought it worked, I thought it was like an actual bazooka, like it's gonna fire this projectile that I could lob over things, and it would like explode in the background. Like, that was my biggest issue in the very beginning of Splatoon 1's lifetime. You can't call something Zuka without me thinking, oh, okay, so it's a rocket launcher. And this thing is not a rocket launcher. It's like,
it sounds like,
in a weird way, it's a straightforward projectile, but it's also not very straightforward. So, because it's like straightforward literally in the sense that, well, you're firing a pillar forward, like you're firing a tornado forward, fine. But then it's like,
as being kind of
like this game's Rainmaker, to be honest.
That's exactly what I
It was like some hype, like the way I thought about it back then, it was like a hybrid between Blaster Directs and this game's Rainmaker.
Yeah.
That's what it really should have been then, actually, now that I think about it.
Like, thinking about the way that Inkzuka operates and the whole kind of like pillar of ink concept and all that kind of stuff is, in a lot of ways, it meant that once you activated it, in order to kill somebody, you only had to aim at them on a 2D plane.
Mm-hmm.
Because the height of where you were aiming was irrelevant by that point. Because as long as you were just aimed kind of in their direction, like if you think about it in terms of like a top-down view,
that makes sense.
it's like you're only having to aim, on the X and Y axis in that case. And as long as you're aiming in their direction, it'll hit them. If it worked more like a charger shot or more like just like a super fast, super long range blaster shot, kind of like almost more like what inkjet shots are. But if you took like an inkjet shot and combined it with like charger shot speed, that's what I think kind of Inkzuka should have been. Because at least that way you still have to actually like aim and hit a person and not just kind of aim in their direction.
Mm-hmm. It's like, genuinely, like, you're gonna hear this and you're probably not gonna believe me because, hey, I use Inkjet so much. But you know what I want more than Inkjet? Like, say, hypothetical Splatoon 3 and they're revealing specials. You know what I want them to do? Literally strip the cannon off of Inkjet and let me run around with that. Just like the way that it works right now, where it's a projectile that fires forward and has a big burst explosion. Like, not that it needs a big hitbox or anything like that, but if it explodes on contact, like basically the range blaster.
I'm thinking more
like,
like,
or the
have the
Rainmaker.
current Rainmaker special weapon.
Yeah. But it's
Without the
like,
charging
if I could,
mechanic of it.
and like the way that you balance some of the cheesier shit, like this is actually something I wanted as far back as like some of the later patches in Splatoon 1. Just make it so that when you're traveling in the ink with it, you like maybe you get like a Moz kind of like antenna. If it's like you can't glow because it's too obvious, then give yourself like a Moz like antenna to be like, hey, that person has this huge ass cannon. Be careful.
Whoa, why did everyone jump here?
But it's like, genuinely, like, because there were elements of Zuka where I felt like straightforward, this is broken. But, like, it's funny too because they patched the Zuka more than 4 times throughout Splatoon 1's life, and they never actually managed to get it to a level of strength where it could be considered balanced. Because, first off, in Splatoon 1, I think a single life, like a single lifespan in game was way more valuable than it is in Splatoon 2.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So like having an instant weapon, like a weapon on anything that would instantly give you the ability to just completely invalidate somebody's efforts for however many lives that they might have, depending on like quick respawn timings or even just like normal respawn timings, because I think you have enough time to kill somebody, have them respawn, and maybe catch them as they're walking off of spawn. So like, yeah, 2 lives, it's like that's a lot of influence to have. And it was the reason why I gravitated towards Zuka, especially towards the end game. The end game was kill a lot of things or just let them roach all over your base of operations. So I'm just there like, fuck it, I'm getting good with Zuka.
I miss things.
I
don't know if I miss it like that, because it's like I miss
I'm whatever the opposite
idea,
of missing in Zuka.
but it's like at the same time Inkjet exists, so I can't really 100% miss Zuka,
I
because
still love hate.
Inkjet is still here.
I have a love-hate relationship with Inkjet because
I think the one thing that makes me kind of like more down on Inkjet than anything is there are times where I find myself using it and it feels like I didn't accomplish anything with it. It's like, oh, I kind of just used that to get out of this situation. I didn't really stop anybody. I didn't get any kills with it. It's just, well, I got out of that situation, the end. And I kind of hate when I utilize specials that way because it always feels like a huge waste. I mean,
what?
yeah, you were able. It's
My typical
like-
usage of Inkzuka boils down to activating Inkzuka. I fire it at somebody. It looks like I hit them about 2 or 3 times, like dead nuts on. They don't die, and then I die.
Yeah. And it still has that weird, you
that's
can
my
take
life.
a direct and not take any damage or whatsoever.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I can get like no look 180 directed by Inkzuka shots that are randomly fired towards me, and I'm just left to like sit there and scratch my head and wait to respawn.
What did he expect?
It's not as bad as Inkzuka was for me, but it's still bad from that perspective of like, I'm just apparently can't do shit with this. Even when it looks like it should be working, it just doesn't.
Yeah,
Also part
I
of
can
why
understand that.
I dropped off of playing Pharah and Overwatch for pretty much the same reason. Because Pharah's just living inkjet.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just, I'll fire rockets at people, nothing happened. Then I get shot down.
Ugh.
Yes, again, exactly.
Mhm.
Anyway, I need to sleep.
Yeah.
Can't get caught up in this
It's like-
again, fuck. Have you met a
It's like, this has actually been quite interesting, and again, I'm gonna put the whole thing up on YouTube because I think it's genuinely good enough to do it. But, what do you call it? Yeah, it's time for us to go and get some rest. It's funny too because I basically just came off, like, I was watching this, like, group discussion panel on, like, current One Piece and shit like that, only to then come and host my own current group discussion on Splatoon meta, and it's like, hey, I'm a talk radio junkie now.
podcast type? It is time to go though.
Okay.
Good.
Alright.
I can't say good games because
Good
I haven't
night,
played
everyone.
any games, but good talks, good points. I don't
Good.
know.
Basically.
GPs.
Oh no.
All right.
I like
Bye,
that.
stream.
Alrighty. Good night, guys. And
What is
thank
wrong
you,
with my
future
team?
viewers
Holy
of
crap.
this thing. As soon as I'm trying to sign out the recording, you say that.
No, like seriously. Just try Slosher. Like, what?
Bye, recording.